It's so sad that the boys are not friends. I cooked for them as young boys. Now I don't know what's going on. I'm really glad Princess Diana's not here to see it.
So I don't know how staying silent is ever going to make things better.
Is the fairy tale brotherhood of William and Harry falling apart? A royal chef just hinted at secrets nobody dared to say out loud. Until now. The rumors might be true and the real story is jaw-dropping. Stay tuned for the untold details, and make sure to subscribe for more royal revelations. When people think of royal revelations, they usually imagine reporters, biographers, or palace insiders. But this time, the voice came from somewhere completely unexpected: the palace kitchen. Darren McGrady, the former royal chef, spent years making meals for the Queen, Princess Diana, and yes, 2 young boys named William and Harry. To most people, he was just the chef. But inside those royal walls, Darren was so much more. He was a comforting presence, a quiet witness to the everyday moments that never made headlines. Now, after decades of silence, Darren has opened up, and what he's shared has left royal fans stunned. Not because it's scandalous, but because it confirms something so many had quietly suspected: the bond between the 2 princes, maybe broken beyond repair. And what makes his insight different? He wasn't observing them from afar. He was right there, while they were still just children, before the titles, before the expectations. He saw the very beginning. And now, he's quietly watching what might be the end. Darren's story doesn't begin with a dramatic revelation. It starts with something far more personal: food. In the busy kitchens of Kensington Palace, Darren wasn't preparing state dinners or handling royal protocol. His job was something far more intimate. He made the meals that brought comfort. He baked the cakes, stirred the custards, and created the dishes that felt like home, not like a crown. To William and Harry, the kitchen was their safe space. They weren't heirs or spares in that room. They were just 2 energetic boys in pajamas, sneaking spoonfuls of dessert and laughing over inside jokes. Darren remembers William asking for a second helping of treacle tart, always glancing over his shoulder to make sure their nanny didn't notice.
And I think that that relationship's gone.
Harry, on the other hand, didn't wait for permission. Already halfway into the pantry, covered in flour. That was their rhythm. William, thoughtful and cautious. Harry, impulsive and fearless. And amidst that chaos, Darren noticed something else. A connection, a genuine bond between brothers. It was playful, messy, and filled with laughter. But even back then, small differences were starting to show. As time went on, those differences between the brothers became clearer. William was the thinker. He took in the room before he spoke. Even as a child, there was a seriousness to him. He understood how to carry the weight of what was expected, even if he didn't always like it. Harry, though, was different. He felt things deeply. He was expressive, loud, and full of energy. Where William hesitated, Harry jumped in without thinking. Where William followed rules, Harry questioned them. He lived with his heart out in the open. In one quiet moment that stuck with Darren, Harry sat down at breakfast, munching on toast, and asked, "Will I ever be king too?" A simple question, but the look in his eyes told a bigger story. That quiet wonder, that ache of trying to find where he fit in a world already assigning them roles. It wasn't about jealousy, it was about identity. William had a path. Harry was still figuring out if he had one at all. And no matter how much they laughed and played, Darren could see that those differences weren't going away. They were growing. As the boys grew, so did the pressure. William began joining his father at official events. He was trained, briefed, and molded into the future king. Meanwhile, Harry stood in the background, watching. Not out of resentment, but out of uncertainty. It was becoming clearer that while William's role was carved in stone, Harry was still waiting to understand his. Darren wasn't at the palace during these years, but he felt the shift. From afar, he saw how the easy joy that once lit up the kitchen had faded. The boys who once danced around the pantry were now walking in polished shoes, wearing carefully practiced smiles. The warm, home-like feel of Kensington had changed. The casual laughter, the spontaneous moments. They'd been replaced with structure, schedules, and silence. And that silence grew louder with time. To most people, the distance between William and Harry became noticeable only recently. Headlines began swirling. Theories were tossed around, but Darren didn't believe the rift started overnight. And it certainly wasn't caused by one person. He doesn't blame anyone specifically. To him, the unraveling began long before, not with a marriage or a media storm, but with a quiet, constant divide. The roles assigned to them from birth. William was prepared. Harry was left wondering, Not because he wasn't capable, but because he didn't have a place clearly marked for him. That uncertainty followed him. Darren saw it back when they were boys. He remembers Harry overhearing staff discussing William's schedule and blurting out, "Why don't they ever ask me things?" William brushed it off, but Darren never forgot. These weren't outbursts. They were signs that Harry was quietly looking for a role of his own. For years, Darren kept those memories to himself. He protected them. He believed in the idea that the brothers would come back to each other, that no matter what happened, they'd remember the bond they once shared. But then he made a video. No dramatic music, no royal setting, just Darren sitting quietly, speaking softly about the past and about what he now sees in the present. "I was wrong," he said. Simple words, but powerful, because they came from someone who had always believed. He wasn't bitter. He wasn't trying to expose anything. He just couldn't keep pretending that the relationship between the boys he once knew still existed in the same way. And that honesty struck a nerve. The reactions weren't loud, but they were deeply felt. From William's side, insiders say the comments hurt. Darren had been part of his childhood, a comforting figure during a complicated time. To hear him speak out publicly, even gently, felt like a betrayal, not because of what was said, but because it was said at all. Harry, too, was affected. He's known for fiercely guarding anything connected to his mother. Darren was part of that sacred space, someone Harry thought would always stay silent out of loyalty to her memory. Both brothers, it seemed, felt something similar, not anger, but sadness. A quiet pain that someone they trusted had spoken the truth aloud. What made Darren's quiet confession so impactful wasn't just what he said. It was how much it went against the story we all wanted to believe. Think about it. For years, the world loved the image of William and Harry as the inseparable brothers. Two young boys who endured more than most of us could imagine, walking side by side, comforting each other, smiling through the toughest moments. It was a story of resilience, of family triumphing over pressure, of two brothers surviving the most complicated life imaginable. Together, people around the world clung to that story because it gave hope. If they could stay close despite all the royal chaos, then maybe the family really could conquer anything. But Darren's words poked a hole in that fairy tale. And it wasn't just fans who felt it. You could sense the collective disappointment among royal watchers. The heartbreak of realizing that some relationships don't survive just because we wish them to. Darren had always been one of the few people speaking about the princes with kindness. While tabloids churned out headlines about rivalry and scandal, he was the one reminding people of the boys who once played hide and seek in the palace, who sat cross-legged eating sweets in the kitchen, and who giggled as they plotted harmless pranks. He had been their defender, a quiet, loyal guardian of their childhood innocence. So when he finally admitted that the brothers had drifted apart, it felt different. It wasn't sensationalized. It wasn't tabloid gossip. It was honest. It was real. And maybe that's why it stung more than any royal feud headline ever could. It forced people to face a tougher question. Maybe this wasn't a case of who's right or who's wrong. Maybe it was simply the slow, inevitable drift that happens when life pulls people in different directions. It wasn't just about duty or headlines. It was about identity. About two people growing into different versions of themselves until one day they no longer recognize the friendship they once shared. And that's a painful truth. Not just for them, but for anyone watching, hoping they'd somehow find their way back. If you've ever experienced a friendship fade or seen someone you love drift away, you understand why Darren's story hit so hard. This wasn't just a royal drama unfolding on screens, it was something deeply human. Darren's memories weren't filled with ceremonies or processions. They were built around the little moments, the secret smiles, the quiet chats over dessert, the harmless kitchen pranks, the silly squabbles that ended in laughter minutes later. He remembered the excitement in William's eyes when his favorite dessert was on the menu. He remembered Harry's mischievous grin as he tried to swipe snacks before dinner. He remembered Diana's fond smile when she saw her boys happy and carefree, even if only for a moment. And above all, Darren remembered Diana's quiet belief, the belief that no matter what, her boys would always have each other. That belief was more than a passing comment. It was her anchor, her hope for their future. And Darren carried that hope with him, long after Diana's presence faded from the palace walls. Through every public appearance, every milestone, every smiling photo, he believed in the unbreakable bond between the two boys he'd watched grow. But with every passing year, that belief was tested. Darren watched from the sidelines as the brothers' public appearances became fewer. their interactions more strained. He noticed the difference: the absence of the playful banter, the lack of warmth in their glances, the polite but distant smiles. It wasn't just distance, it was disconnected. And Darren, like many of us, kept hoping it was just a phase. That time would heal old wounds, that shared memories would pull them back together, that the love of family would win in the end. But now, even Darren had to admit, it might not happen. For the world, this realization was a gut punch. It wasn't about royal gossip anymore. It was about confronting something we all experience. That sometimes, no matter how much love there once was, people can drift so far apart. They simply can't find their way back. Think about it. How many of us have friendships from childhood that quietly faded away? How many of us have family members we once laughed with, who now feel like strangers? That's what made Darren's words so heavy. Because they didn't just speak about William and Harry, they spoke about all of us, and about how life, with all its changes and challenges, can pull people apart without either side realizing it. And then one day, you look up, and the person who once knew you best feels like a distant acquaintance. Darren remembered how Harry used to wait outside the pantry, giggling, waiting for William to sneak in with him, both of them ready to jump out and surprise him. Fast forward to today, and Darren watched Harry walk right past William at a royal event, not even stopping to smile, not even making eye contact. It wasn't anger in Darren's voice. It was sad. Sadness for the boys who used to be inseparable. Sadness for the promise their mother made. A promise that now seemed broken. And maybe that's what made Darren's confession different from everything else out there. This wasn't a dramatic royal bombshell. It was a quiet heartbreak. The heartbreak of watching something beautiful quietly fade away. So now we're left with the question, can it ever be repaired? Can two boys who once shared a bond stronger than the spotlight find their way back to each other? Or has life, with all its expectations, titles, and quiet pressures, pushed them too far apart? Darren McGrady wasn't a royal advisor. He didn't live in the spotlight. He just cooked meals, offered comfort, and watched a family grow. And maybe that's why his words hit so hard. Because the people behind the scenes often see the clearest. They see the truth before it's filtered through cameras and press releases. So what do you think? Is there still hope for a reunion, or has this chapter closed for good? Let us know in the comments. Your thoughts matter, and your voice adds to the story. And if you want to hear more untold moments from inside royal life, check out our next video. There's always more behind the palace walls than meets the eye. Don't forget to subscribe, because sometimes the quietest stories leave the loudest echo.